We normally talk about scams, but today we're going to learn about a new predatory business model popping up in college athletics, about the NIL deal. Kendrick Perkins was in the news just the other day. You may recognize him, former NBA player. He is running a fund accused of predatory practices. Another article came out, his platform facing ethical scrutiny. Even ESPN, new NIL company, raises red flags from consumer finance experts. Let's see what this is all about. The company Nilly, a play on NIL, offers athletes upfront payments ranging from $25,000 into hundreds of thousands of dollars. In return, Nilly gets the exclusive rights to use or sell the athlete's name, image, and likeness for up to 7 years, and the company and its investors receive between 10 and 50% of the player's NIL earnings during that time period. 50%? Oh my gosh, Spencer, that's predatory. Let's see if it is or isn't. They are lending to high school athletes, apparently, which does get a little tricky. In exchange for their name, image, and likeness for 7 years, Nilly and its investors will receive a 25% cut of the player's NIL earnings for the length of the contract. So if he goes and makes $10 million, you're going to get 25% of that, right? $50,000 becomes $250,000. Not so fast. If this was a title loan or auto loan, one of those are real predatory. That would turn into an insane loan. However, in this example, Nilly only earns a total of $125,000 as a cap, 2.5% its initial investment, whichever comes first. Ideally, these athletes are using the money almost as a loan, a short-term loan, and they are investing in themselves to increase the odds of getting a much larger contract or even reaching the professional leagues down the road. That way, both parties win. Ricky Artie, one of the co-founders, said, well, hold on, the Nilly deals are not loans, but they're licensing agreements. If an athlete doesn't earn enough NIL money within the contracted time frame to recoup their investment, they're not responsible to pay back any part of the upfront money. So this is similar to the music industry. You receive the money and you don't technically owe it all back. You do if you earn enough to pay it back. However, if you don't actually go earn any money, it was essentially a free loan. Big risk comes with big reward for the investors. Kendrick Perkins said he was confident that the company was helping athletes rather than harming them. This is an investment fund giving young athletes money in hopes that they both win. How do they both win? The athlete makes a significant amount of money, which we'll get to in a second. There's one example of an athlete making a significant sum in their big contract. If the athlete were to use this money, invest in themselves, and ultimately receive a big payday, then yeah, they got to pay back a pretty big percentage to the company. However, in that example, both parties win, a win-win partnership. Fernando Tatis Jr. owes investment fund estimated $27.2 million after Padres' contract. Here's an example of a win-win. Tatis investor Big League Advance seeks $250 million for new baseball fund. Big money starting to show up because they're seeing the returns that can be made. This is a different funding group. However, I want to highlight how this can happen in the pro leagues so that we can see what might happen with NIL. What's different about Big League Advance is they give the borrower a chance to decide how much they want. So $100,000 up front for 1% of his future earnings. That player can then decide to accept $500,000 in exchange for 5% or $1 million for 10%. Their choice. However, the difference between this fund and the NIL is this one is uncapped. The business model is pretty simple, similar to the music industry. You're going to invest in, here's an example, 10 different athletes. 7 of them, you invest a variety of $100,000, $200,000 loan, $500,000 loan, and you're going to lose it all. Those players get injured, they quit, they don't pan out, they don't reach the majors. Maybe 1 out of 10 reaches the majors for a cup of coffee, as they say, and recoups maybe $80,000 to $100,000 investment. So 8 out of the 10 athletes, they're out a combined $2.5 million, let's call it. Could be multiple millions. And then there's maybe 1 out of 10 that successfully gets that big contract, and they're able to not only just pay back the loan, but also a little bit of profit. So in this example, that athlete might pay back, they might have earned, the investors might earn $100,000 on the $250,000 investment. But what they're really after, same with the music industry, same with venture capital, when you are investing in 10 different athletes, musicians, companies, you're looking for that one big payday, and you want the 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, 1 out of 30 to become Fernando Tatis, and they make $27.2 million off a $500,000 investment. Holy smokes, you can only make 34x your investment, or 54x your investment in just a couple years in crypto. You can also do so in this fund. Of course, when the one player like Fernando Tatis or Justin Bieber, when they hit and they have to pay back $50 million, $100 million, oh my gosh, that's so predatory, you're giving up so much of your income. Well, what eventually happens is that the big winner out of this, the 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20, is subsidizing for all the losers. Big money, I'm telling you, just last year, Big League Advantage, the $400 million investment fund that gives athletes cash in exchange for future earnings, $400 million. OnFocus.news is the author of this article. They said the first fund, $26 million, second, $130, third fund, $250 million. It's increasing because all the investors are seeing the money that can be made. This article indicates that there were over 500 players that received an investment from BLA over a 7-year period. Keep in mind that these are investments that don't pay off immediately. A lot of these athletes might take 4 or 5 years to reach the majors, maybe even longer to get that big payday. Only 100, so roughly 20, probably less than 20%, even made it to the majors. So think about this. Their big winner was Fernando Tatis Jr., and it gets the headline, oh my gosh, he has to pay back a fund $27 million. Well, sure. They also invested $500,000 up to $500,000 for 500 different athletes. One of the downsides of that business is sometimes you have to recoup from people who don't want to pay up. Raimel Tapia made almost $10 million in his career. He apparently did not like paying, and they had to recoup. They had to chase him in court for $1.8 million. Sergio Alcantara made $1.8 in his career. They had to chase him. They received a judgment, $180,000 from him. Jorge Guzman only made $500,000 in his career as a professional athlete. I think he took on a pretty big loan, and he ultimately owed $97,000. Francisco Mejia made $5.4 million. A big success story, right? Well, they ended up having to sue him and chase him for money. In 2016, they paid an advance of $360,000. So, but before you start hearing these, predatory business practices, before we start labeling these companies as predatory, I want you to think about what it takes to give someone $360,000. Unproven, minor league baseball player, really low success rate, might not even speak English, difficult to communicate with the guy, and you're giving him $360,000. That's a level of trust that's a lot, so much money, in hopes that maybe one day he becomes a success story. So he makes the $5.4 million and he doesn't pay. Jose Osuna, another one, a little over $1.6 million earned. He didn't pay, and he owes them $430,000. Final one, Genesis Cabrera made $4 million, decided not to pay. He owes them $425,000. So keep in mind that even just collecting, one of the reasons why credit cards cost so much money, the interest rate is so high, a lot of times they extend credit to people and those people don't pay. And unfortunately, that gets baked into the cost of doing business, and it affects all of us who do pay back loans. I'm using this chart to show the Nilly is the Kendrick Perkins company for college athletes, and BLA, Big League Advance, is the one for the pro athletes. The cap is where, in my opinion, a business model is not predatory, because the athlete is given a loan, no promise of paying it back, no guarantee of paying it back. They don't owe anything if they are never able to make money. And in college athletes, high-end college athletes, you have a lot of injuries, a lot of situations where things go wrong and you don't end up making money. And so they're capping this athlete in this example. You can go make $1 million, not even owe $250 because it's capped at $125, whereas the BLA athlete can go earn $300 million on their contract, and if it's 10% of their earnings, then they're going to owe Fernando Tatis Jr. $27 million. If you don't cap it, then it can start to feel a little predatory because the amount is so much. When you are the star and you go earn all the money and you got to pay back $30 million for a loan of $500,000, seems a little on the edge of predatory. However, the reason why I was a little upset with a lot of the commentary about Kendrick Perkins' fund is when you cap the amount earned. In my opinion, that's not predatory. It's very clear what the loan is for. It's an investment into the athlete to go make a lot of money and be the best version of themselves. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you better understand this business model. Thank you so much for watching.